live.
Your chit-set.
What's up, everybody? I'd like to welcome y'all back to the Real Talk with Real Estate Investors show. I'm Trevor Young, along with my man, Dan Caldwell. And man, do we have an awesome show in store for you guys today. Our guest today is a real estate investor and entrepreneur who brought house flipping to public attention with his hit TV show, Flip This House, back in 2006. In 2012, Inc. 500 named his company the #1 educational company in America and the #2 Hispanic businessman in America, teaching tens of thousands his real estate investment systems. He's the star of the reality show Flipping Nightmares and one of the most sought after real estate investment coaches today. Please give a warm welcome to our guest, Mr. Armando Montelongo. Armando, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Dan, for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
It's so good to have you on, man. You're one of the guys that I would follow on our show, because I have a real estate office, and we always have the shows up there, all the shows that are playing, and you're one of the shows that I would actually watch because we're flipping homes, and I just always felt connected to you and that you were real, and I'd see some of the problems you were going through, and I'd be like, does anybody else go through these problems? Is anybody else walking into a house that needs a hazmat?
It was great. It was
That
fun.
was you.
It was fun.
No doubt, man. And it's the same for me too. I think you inspired myself and a lot of folks. I know my buddies I was kind of talking to that you were coming on the show today. They're like, Armando's the dude that got me into real estate flipping, And so I know that we're not alone. Like that's the same for thousands of folks out there, man. So
Thank you very much.
This is great for us. So you're there in San Antonio, is that right?
I'm in San Antonio, Texas, huh? Yes.
How is life in San Antonio right now?
San Antonio is great. Life is great. On when I did the television show, so the first show I did was called Flip This House. Mm-hmm. And at that time I had my son who was 7 years old. He's 21 now. And I have 3 more little guys. So life is great. San Antonio is great. And the market here is incredibly hot.
Sweet, man.
Yeah,
sweet, man.
Great.
So take us on a little bit of a journey back in time, man. Where did things start for Armando? Obviously you're an entrepreneur, man. You're a businessman. You've done a lot of things, TV shows and so forth. Take us on a journey back in time. Where did this mindset come about?
Well, it's really funny because when I speak in front of people, I'll tell them, the man you see today is not the guy that I was 19 years ago. I've been flipping houses now for 19 years.
Wow.
And I said, really, I was kind of considered the weak link of my family. I was the one that my parents were like, oh, we're for sure gonna have to support him when he's grown. Right?
You and me both.
And I tell people all the time, it's very funny because I said, back then I was the weak link. Back then I was kind of the weirdo, right? And today I'm just known as eccentric. And I said, what's the difference between being a weirdo and being eccentric? So it's the size of your checking account, right?
Yeah.
And so true. I think a lot of people are probably listening to this show right now. They're the weird ones in their family. They're the ones who are a little bit different, right? And that's the entrepreneurial mindset. So the question is, how do we get them from kind of being like the weird one to like being someone who maybe is just eccentric in their life? But before I ever got started into real estate, I was married, and my wife at the time, she gave birth to our son, and the doctors literally cut her the wrong way. And she lost half the blood in her body in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I remember her face was white and her lips were blue. And the doctors were wheeling her off to the emergency room. And I said, doctor, are you going to save her? I need you to save her. And the doctor said, Armando, he says, be prepared to say goodbye because your wife may not live past the next 24 hours. And as I brought her out of the emergency room, I was sitting next to her in the ICU. And about 20 minutes later, a nurse comes rushing in. She goes, Mr. Montelongo, we have a problem. Now, there's a problem when you're sitting next to your spouse in the intensive care unit and somebody comes and says that you have a bigger problem. And I stepped outside and he says, your son, Mondo Man, my newborn son, we've shipped him off to Children's of LA. So we were in Upland, California, and they took him an hour way down to Children's of LA. So you're in LA, Dan, right? So you know where Children's of LA Hospital is, right? I took him down an hour to LA by ambulance. And I remember the time I was like, do I go with my son? Do I go with my wife? Do I go with my son? And I remember my father-in-law all the time he goes, Armando, he goes, you go take care of your baby and we'll take care of ours, right? And that was probably one of the most difficult decisions I ever had to make at that time.
No doubt.
And I think that was a learning lesson because so many times I think people have a very difficult time making decisions that I think people's muscle making decisions are very, very weak, right? That was probably the first really tough decision I felt like I had to make as an adult. I go down there to go visit my son and the doctor says, Armando, we have a problem. He says, your son only has 8,000 platelets. The average healthy human has 300,000 platelets. And the platelets would help your blood coagulate. He says, so if your son was to get cut the wrong way, like we poked him with a needle the wrong way, he goes, or, you know, if we bumped his head, or he says, heaven forbid, if he just cries too hard, he says, your son could bleed to death in a matter of minutes. He says, your son may not live past the next 24 hours. And so I was told on the exact same day that the two people I love the most in this world may not live another 24 hours. And the people who watched our television show years later saw that my wife and my son lived, but what they don't know is that they were in the hospital for about 2.5 months. And when they brought them back, I spent the next 6 months nursing them back to health. And I didn't have any money then. But I will tell you that we had a little condominium in Upland, California that I had borrowed a down payment from my father-in-law. We lost it for foreclosure. So it's like when I buy foreclosures now, I can tell people, I know what you're going through. We've been through that. I can tell you what's going to happen, the parts that you don't know what's going to happen. We ended up moving into my in-laws garage and being $50,000 in debt. We were on food stamps and I had a 501 credit score. And I was, I was to the point where I didn't know how the hell I was going to make it. I had a desire to make money. And I think that's like a lot of people who are listening to the show right now, they have a desire to make money. They've dabbled in it. They maybe have done a few deals. Maybe even some have, accumulated $1 million to do deals, but they haven't hit that point of success to really break through to where they're completely financially free, right? And so I wanted to make money. I had nothing. I had $50,000 in debt and I was on food stamps. So I met a man he was a very rich man and who made a lot of wealth. He was a developer in Southern California. And he taught me, he says, Armando, so we went, I found this guy. He wasn't doing classes. He wasn't doing anything, right? This is way before. Like, you got to understand, when I started flipping houses, like if you flipped houses, when I started flipping houses, you were a bottom of the barrel scavenger. Right. This was before TV shows. This was before like banks loan hard money, which banks loan hard money. It's like Goldman Sachs loans freaking hard money now, right? So this was before like everything. People were like, when I started flipping houses, people were like, you flip houses?
It wasn't the cool thing to do then, was it?
No, you're taking grandma's house. Like I was like, you're bottom of the barrel scavenger, right?
Right.
So this guy begins to teach this man who's a developer, he's worth about $100 million, teaching me how to start flipping houses. And he goes, but Southern California is not the place to do it. You got to move to Texas. I was like, shit, now I got to tell my wife I'm doing this, right? So I tell my wife we're moving to Texas. She goes, you're moving to Texas. Me and my son, it was our son. She goes, me and my son were staying here, right?
Right.
And so I went and I said, honey, I went, I got a Ryder truck. I borrowed $1,000 from my dad. I got a Ryder truck. And I said, honey, you're getting the front of the truck or you're getting the back of the truck, but you're coming to Texas, right? And so I tell men all the time who don't get going in real estate, they're like, well, my wife doesn't support me. It's like, that's because men are liars. That's why. Because we say, baby, I'm going to give you the best house. Baby, I'm going to give you the best cars. Baby, I'm going to give you a big ring. And then we get married and we forget all about it. Mm-hmm. But we're liars and they stop trusting us, right? But what happened is when he told me to move to Texas, we packed up everything in the Ryder truck, okay? And Dan, when we crossed that border over into Arizona, okay? Not the border from Mexico to Arizona, the one from California, Arizona, right? Uh-huh. We crossed the border to Arizona. My wife goes, you did it. I go, what? She goes, you manned up. You finally manned up. So like, I just remember being outside of a Roach Motel, $25 a night, outside Phoenix, Arizona. It was 6 a.m. in the morning. And I remember like the sun was coming up and the sky was gray. And I'm standing behind this Ryder truck, yellow Ryder truck, and I'm crying from the bottom of my stomach. And I'm like, I said, I'm like, this man told me like to move to Texas. He says he's gonna be my mentor. I don't even fucking know this guy. I don't know if I can trust. I borrowed $1,000 from my dad. I don't have any money. And I just said, if I ever learn how to be successful, I'm gonna share it with the world. So we moved to Texas and I started flipping houses. And we did it right during what's called the mold days. So when people tell me, oh, you can't do it in this market. By the way, just for all of you who are new real estate investors, or you've been dabbling in this a couple of years, you can be in the best market, you can be in the worst market. I don't care what market you're in, people are gonna tell you, you can't do real estate. If you learn nothing else from this show, if you learn nothing else from this episode, please remember this. It doesn't matter if it's a hot market or cold market or flat market. It doesn't matter if it's a recession or a boom. People are gonna tell you, you can't do real estate, okay? I went and just, I like to test my skills sometimes. So I went to Oklahoma, to a small city in Oklahoma to go buy houses. Now this was 2 years ago. I'd already done television show and, you know, Inc. 500 and Undercover Boss, all these, like, I think really, I appreciate the accolades, right? I've been flipping houses for, at that time, 17 years. And the realtor goes, Armando, it doesn't work here. Right? And so I said, well, let's see. So in 30 days, I bought 27 houses in 30 days.
Wow.
Okay. So it's a matter of skill set. It's a matter of mindset, right? And then, so I would say that we started, my first year, I made $1 million. My first 3 years, I made $1 million each year. $1 million, right?
Your first 3 years.
I made $1 million my first year.
Really?
I made $1 million my second year. Now you have to understand though, I tell my students this. I said, I have one thing over all of you, right? Because when I started this, like I didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come to me for like education, they have money. I said, I have something over you guys. You guys got money, I have something over you. I said, I have hunger. I was gonna be kicked out of my home. I said, my back was up against the wall and I had no other choice. I had no choice. That's what the advantage I have.
Yep.
So I made $1 million my first year. I made $3 million in 3 years. And then 5 years later, the TV show A&E came to us, Flip This House came to us. So we didn't know it was Flip This House at this time. They came to us and they said, would you like to do a TV show, right? And I have to be honest with you, I always wanted to do TV. I always wanted to do TV. I don't know why, I always wanted, at that time in my life, I always wanted to do TV. And so I had actually heard about this from one of my private lenders. The network actually didn't come to me, I heard about it from a private lender. Private lender goes, hey man, they interviewed me to do it, but I told them about you because you're kind of crazy, you flip a lot of houses, and you know, I just think it would go good. You know, you got a family business there and stuff. So I took the application and I got the application. This is super critical for people who are wanting to do some sort of business in their life. I got the application, right? And I looked at it and it was 8 pages long. Now I'd already made millions of dollars, not tens of millions, because I've only been in business 5 years, but I made several $1 million, right? That 8 pages may as well have been 8,000 pages because it was daunting, because I wanted it more than I wanted oxygen. I wanted it more than anything. Mm-hmm. And so I was afraid of being disappointed. So I took that application, I put it in my desk drawer, and I closed the drawer, and I came that far away from closing the door. Mm. And I said, if I close this door, I'm never going to get back around to it. Right? And I heard the saying one time that some day is not a day of the week. I'm like, I'm not going to get around to it. So I go and I take the application and I fill it out and I tell them all my successes. I did this great, I did this great, all my successes. Then I look at it and I was like, God damn, that's boring, man. That is so boring. My life is so boring, right? So then I go back and I throw it away and I tell them about all my fuck ups, all the houses that I screwed up on, right? I tell them about the time I bought a house from this guy. It was a foreclosure. I didn't know who the guy was. I bought a foreclosure from the bank actually, because the guy went to prison. But by the time I bought it, because it was on the market for like a year, by the time I bought it, the guy gets out of prison. Guess where he goes back to?
His house.
His house. So there's no carpet in the house, but he's got a campfire going in the living room. I'm closing on it. I own the house. It's winter. The guy has a campfire going in the living room, right? Well, I'm start calling the cops, but guess what? This guy's been in prison. He's smart. Cops show up. He's out. He's gone, right? Well, cops show up after 8 o'clock in the morning. Cops show up. He's gone. We have contractors go out there. He's gone, right? And there's burglar bars around the whole house. So he's got himself like locked in. But I got a key one day and I wrote about this in my application. I showed up about 6:30 in the morning and I got a key put it in very quietly and I turned it. But I had a secret weapon. I had my 150-pound Rottweiler in the door. I unchained it and I slapped him on the ass, on the Rottweiler on the ass, and I go, run! And you just hear like, the guy ran out the back door, and the door slammed, and the guy never came back. And that's the kind of stuff I wrote about, and that's one of the reasons we got a TV show, I think. So, you know, it was fun.
Oh, for sure. I bet everybody was writing about all their great successes and how many houses they flipped and how great, how well they did it. And you came in and wrote the exact formula for a television show.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah, I believe that's what really helped. And so we were on our show, on our TV show, we were always committed to showing the screw ups. Because we have lots of houses that we didn't have. I mean, you're always gonna have some sort of a problem in a house. You're always gonna have a problem, right? But we had a lot of houses we didn't have any major problems on, but we had some major issues on. And so we showed that, we were committed to showing that. And I think that's what drove the success of that show. I mean, till today, for the house flipping shows, I mean, I don't know if people know this, but we were Saturday mornings, and we were originally Sunday nights, and our ratings were so huge they moved to Saturday mornings to make it profitable. But we would have a 2.4 million rating on a Saturday morning. Wow. So that's bigger ratings than like what Don Lemon gets on CNN, right? So that's like, those on a Saturday morning, those are massive ratings. So and the show did good, and that's what kind of spun off all the other house flipping shows that are out there.
That is so cool, man. That's a great story. Let me ask you this. I know that whenever you said that you started, you had nothing, right? You know, no money, really nothing. You had a Ryder truck, and you had a wife and your kid. But as far as possessions and and a bank account, all that stuff, it wasn't there yet. So how did you get your momentum at first in the start? Were you wholesaling?
The momentum was really momentum was really tough to get. And I think we all know that once you lose momentum, or if you don't have momentum, so that's the hardest thing to get in business, right? Because it takes a lot of mindset and a lot of willpower to begin to get momentum. There was a situation that was happening in Texas at that time, all right? And the situation has taught me that there's so much opportunity and problems, okay? In Texas, what happened at that time was there was there was a big mold scare, okay? So if a house had moisture inside the walls or had mold, people could file an insurance claim and tear their house apart, okay? But the problem is people were getting sick from it at this time, or claiming that they were getting sick from it. And so they were filing insurance claims, and houses were depreciating by 40% overnight. So what it caused is it caused houses to sit on the market for 8 months to a year without being sold, because somebody was afraid, if I buy a house for 100 grand and it depreciates by 40%, now I have a $60,000 house.
Can't have that happen.
The houses were sitting there, right? So I remember when I first moved to Texas, I was reading the newspaper and it says mold, and it had mold, like a picture of green mold on it. And then I'm watching Oprah. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all right? It's because I'm unemployed. I don't have it. I'm watching Oprah at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Here I am, a grown male watching Oprah, right? Of all things to do. And she's talking about how there's mold all over Texas, okay? And houses depreciating by 40% overnight. And I called my mentor, freaked out. I was like, why did you tell me to move here? There's mold, there's houses depreciating by 40% overnight. I'm with my family out here. I don't have any money. He goes, Armando, he goes, that is the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I would buy houses because there was so much fear in the marketplace. If a house depreciated by 40%, I would still be able to buy it at 50% of that value. I would clean it and fix it up. I would sell it undervalued. I would get a report from an engineer showing that the house was clean. I was selling fully remodeled houses for 15% off of market value, fully cleaned, and my houses would sell in less than 30 days. And that's how I made $1 million that first year, right? So it was very, and then people were gonna say, well, how the hell did you get the money to do it, right? How'd you get the money to go out there and do those houses, right? So, you know, one of the things that really bothers me a lot is I've been hearing a lot of millionaires, even billionaires lately, talk about luck, how luck plays a part in it. And I think that timing plays a part in it. And I call it shooting the gap, right? It's like a really good halfback is going to see daylight, and how fast he hits that hole is the difference between running for a touchdown and getting 4 or 5 yards.
Yeah.
Right. And so I believe that great entrepreneurs can go out there and see the daylight. And when they see the daylight, they hit the hole. Okay. But you're like, but Armando, you're brand new. You weren't a great entrepreneur. And that's absolutely correct. But it's called running in the, I equate this to running in the sand, right? So if you ran in the sand every day, right? So one time I hired this guy to go out and teach me how to like become like, oh, lose a bunch of weight. I had to gain a bunch of weight, lose a bunch of weight. So we were running sprints in the sand. I was like, oh, my chest flex is going to bust. He goes, those are called polyps in your chest. Those polyps burst in your chest, right? You're doing a 75-day challenge. You know what that feels like, right? So those polyps are busting in your chest. He goes, after running reps 3 days in a row, the polyps won't burst anymore. So boom, boom, boom. He goes, so on the 4th day, he goes, now go run on the boardwalk. And all of a sudden you're just faster and you're better and you're breathing more air. Same thing happens in business. You're going to run the sand for a little bit, and that's where most people give up, right? It's going to be slow.
That's right.
But when that opportunity comes and that sunlight comes through, you have to hit the hole of opportunity. So I was looking at a mold infested house that had a mold infested house that was under litigation at the time. Okay. And what I did was there was a lawyer on the other side. He was the opposing lawyer. Now I'll tell you how I got involved in that in a second, but I was representing a lawyer who was suing the insurance company. He was a lawyer for the insurance company. Okay. Now how the hell did I get involved with that?
Right.
Well, I found all these mold infested homes and I went and knocked on lawyers' doors. Okay. And you have to understand this time, Trevor, I was out there chasing ambulances. I would sit outside like fire departments and I would chase ambulances for burned homes. I mean, my wife would be home watching the news for like burned houses in Texas because they ignite like in the middle of the summertime, right? She's like, hey, this house is burning on 123 ABC Street.
And by the way, around what time frame was this? Or what year?
This was 2001.
2001.
This was 2001. So I moved to Texas in August of 2001. So guess what happens a month later? I had negotiated 2.5 months of free rent. I found an apartment complex I was getting, apartment complexes give like away a month or 2 of free rent.
Yep.
So I found an apartment complex that gave away 2 months of free rent. I negotiated 2 more weeks and I thought I was like a master negotiator. I have 2.5 months of free rent, right? Well, guess what happens the next month? 9/11 hits, right?
Oh man.
So I'm like, fuck, like I'm out here, I don't have any money. We sold our furniture for food. So we kept a bed and a couch and everything else we sold for food. Okay. So, which just shows you our financial savvy at the time, right? We spent all this money on a Ryder truck and then we sold our furniture for food. We had no financial savvy. Like we were completely financially ignorant, right? If we were smart, we would have just sold our furniture for food in California, got in a car and drove over here with no Ryder truck. Okay.
Right.
So I start knocking on lawyers' doors going, hey, I want to buy property. And everyone's like, well, we're not going to turn down our clients to buy property. So what happens is I said, I will become an expert witness for you when you're suing these insurance companies. They're like, well, what's your license? Do you have a real estate license? I said, no. They said, do you have a broker's license? I said, no. Are you an inspector? I said, no. They said, are you an appraiser? I said, no. They said, then what qualifies you to be an expert witness saying that somebody's house used to be worth 100 grand, but now it's worth 30 grand? What makes you an expert? I said, well, you're trying to establish the value of a house. I said, what establishes the value better than somebody actually paying that price for it?
Right.
Because the value of anything is what somebody's going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, shit. And I said, and I'll be your expert for free. They said, okay. They said, okay. Because these lawyers were having to front load all the costs for these lawsuits against these insurance companies. Okay. But there was a key. I said, I have to be able to meet your client. So think about it. There's a homeowner, the house is full of mold. The lawyer says, you need to meet this man who's going to help us with a lawsuit. That builds immediate what? Trust.
Right.
So now the homeowners are selling the houses to me and they're not looking at anyone else to sell the houses. So now I have houses that people want to buy. Now I got to look for money. Well, at that time, there was hardly any hard money lenders and I never heard of hard money, right? So I meet this gentleman, he's a lawyer. His name is 𝗏𝗏. He's a lawyer here in San Antonio. And he's both a litigation attorney, but also does insurance work. And I meet him, okay? And I like this guy because I could just sense this guy was about money. So I invited him to go out to a bar. He was not my lawyer. I wasn't working for this guy. I called him one day. I had his card and asked him to go to a bar. We went to a bar, local drinking establishment. And after about 6 vodkas, I presented him the idea of him loaning me the money.
Wow.
And I said, I'll split the profits with you 50-50. I said, and you're a lawyer, you know how to secure the loan. So he took out the deed of trust and the note. I didn't have to make any payments. I fixed the house up. He front loaded it 100% and we split the profits 50-50. My first deal, I made 34 grand, right?
And I'll tell you something too, for the folks that are listening right now, you were doing this in 2001 when we didn't have all of these Facebook groups, you know, all these connection sites, you know, all these different meetups, all these different apps, and all the software, and all of that. You know what I mean? You were working with, what did you say? The newspaper? You know, you read an ad about mold, you know, originally, and then you know, you just kind of networked. You know, you didn't have the resources, you know, there right now, and I think that there's something to be said behind that. You know, that you still took that action. You know, like you said, you were running in the sand for a bit and not moving, but you kept going, right? And so I think it's important for folks that are listening to realize that you don't have to be in the best of scenarios. You've got all the tools and the resources in the world to be successful right now. And you just got to take action and go. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
no, it's great. Because what you're saying, Trevor, is really, people, it's really funny because people think whatever position they're in is the most difficult position. But I have the ability I'm lucky enough to have hindsight 2020, right? House flipping was much more difficult then than it is now, right? Though like people say, no, there's a lot more house flippers. There's over 200,000 houses that are flipped a year. That's on record. That doesn't include all the bankruptcy deals, all the foreclosure deals, all the divorce deals, all the probate deals. That doesn't include, that's 200,000 houses a year, okay? The average successful house flipper means somebody who's flipped a house does one in their lifetime, okay? There's an unlimited amount of potential in this marketplace, an unlimited amount of potential for it. So, but there's resources. We have, look, these guys have your Facebook pages. They have shows like you. There's education sources. There's a lot of shitty education sources, but there's education sources, right? There's lenders out the wazoo. Goldman Sachs. Okay, when I first started loaning money, or excuse me, when I first started getting money, a hard money lender, man, you're going to the back of a pizza parlor with like a guy with a cigar I literally paid 6 points and 18% interest. Okay, 6 points and 18% interest. And I mean, they seemed like almost on the verge of like loan sharks. They weren't, right? But they seemed
right. That's pretty close.
Now Goldman Sachs will loan you money at 6% and 1.5 points. But people don't know this, right? They have to have some experience for it. But I went to Goldman Sachs asked me to go to when LeBron James first started playing for LA. He asked me to go to the Staples Center. And they have a suite there. Like, so normally your basketball suite's like one. They have like, it's like 3 connected, 3 bars. And
nice.
And they're like, we're loaning money out for house flipping as a normal bank. Like, we wouldn't have touched this product years ago. It's a normal business model. Okay. So today, when somebody goes and says, oh, this can't be done, or house flipping is not real, or like when people who are watching this and your friends or family tells you that it's a scam, just understand that that is complete, idiocy. Those people do not know what they're talking about. Goldman Sachs recognizes this as a very highly profitable arm of their business. And just because somebody else doesn't know what to do, doesn't mean that it's a scam or you're taking advantage of people or anything else. It's just not true.
You're right, man. And I love that folks are getting to hear that, because it's just one of those things that you don't have to have. The resources are there, right? Do you know what I mean? And just take advantage of it, man. They're so Goldman Sachs. That's legitimized a lot of the lending, and I can only imagine that other banks are going to follow suit with that. Tell us a little bit about. And by the way, just so you know, too, Dan, apparently his power went out. He's out there in California. I don't know what's going on, on fires and whatnot.
Rolling blackouts, probably.
Right. So he did text me and said that he'll be coming back soon. But in the meantime, for the folks that are listening, I think what happens is people are hearing, okay, Mondo's had success, Trevor's had success, Dan's had success. All of these folks have had success, but they feel like for whatever reason, their situation's different, and you know they want to do it. You know, they know that the money's there, and they know that that if they just take action, I guess, you know, then they should be able to do the same thing and replicate it. But there's always something, for whatever reason, that just keeps people from making that next step. What do you think that might be, and how can they overcome that?
Well, I think there's both a conscious problem and a subconscious problem. Okay, the conscious problem is people are going, how do I find the deals and how do I get the funding? If I can just find the deals, I would be okay. If I can just get the funding, I would be okay. So that's the conscious problem. And then there's the subconscious problem. And the subconscious problem for most people, even people who kind of made it, is they don't feel at the core that they're going to make it. And that comes from a problem of going, I'm not good enough. And listen, it's kind of a nationwide issue that's going on right now. Okay, and it's been going on for a long time, since the 1950s, of I'm not good enough. So what that means is people are going to say, screw you, Armando, I am good enough. I want the money. I'm smarter than everyone else in my class. Okay, great. Why doesn't your bank account reflect it? Okay, it's because there's a deep subconscious problem of that we just have to build the confidence up in you. Because if you had the confidence, you would follow through. If you have confidence, you wouldn't listen to what a single family member said. If you have the confidence, listen, I've learned in my life to ask my family members' opinion on real estate and then do the exact opposite. Okay, I've trained myself to ask my family's opinion on business and do the exact opposite. Okay, so the house that I live in right here, I bought it as a 7,100 square foot house. I bought it as a $500,000 tax lien. Now, people in San Antonio don't have, like, there's not the gene pool for multi-million-dollar houses. Okay, I dropped about $2.1 million into the house, and it's worth about $4.3 million, and I added 3,000 square feet, right? So it's about 10,000 square feet. And that's part of the marble, but the whole house, if I walk you through it, is completely marble on those sides of the walls. They call them, my friends call the marble palace, right? And so, by the way, just so you know, Trevor, we're having I know this one was one of our first times to talk, but we're having a 50th, some friends of mine have a 50th birthday party. They decided, I'm turning 50 here in a few weeks, they decided to have it at my house. You and Dan should come. You're gonna meet some amazing people.
We'd love to.
There's gonna be a lot of people with money. There's gonna be a lot of great people. It's gonna be a costume party. It's October 25th. It's gonna be a huge party, right? In fact, I bet later on when I give out my URL, right? People can contact and go, hey, shit, maybe we'll pick 1 or 2 people. They got to be cool people who may come to the party. That might be pretty cool, right? But when I bought this house, I bought it as a tax lien foreclosure, and everyone told me not to do it, which told me I need to do this. Okay, I need to buy this house. When you begin to raise your standards, okay, your subconscious mind goes, I can do this. Like, I'm good enough. Like, I'm this valuable. Like, this I can do. Okay. So there's both the functional and the what I call the non-functional, right? The conscious, if I could just find the deals, and if I could just go out there and find the money. So let's address that first. The biggest problem is everybody wants to know the A to Z of flipping. Man, they just need to get to A to B. They can just do A to B and accomplish that, then C is going to begin to naturally fall in line. But what happens is people, especially those who are highly analytical, they'll want to know the A to Z, and they'll find faults all the way through. Okay, so rather than looking for the money and the deal, I would just say, let's just find you a deal first. First you find the deal, then you find the money. If you find the deal, the money will always follow. Does that make sense? Sure. So if somebody finds a great deal, shit, we can hook them up with lenders and walk them through the deal. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I have no problem doing it. We love doing that stuff, right? But first you find the deal, and then you find the money. Stop worrying. Like, if somebody has a 501 credit score, do you realize nowadays people with 560 credit scores can get money for house flipping? I mean, you know it. But
absolutely.
It's crazy.
And I tell folks all the time too that don't be scared. You know, make sure your numbers are right. But if your numbers are good, the buyers are always there. They're waiting around, drooling, salivating, waiting for you to bring in that good deal. You won't have a problem getting rid of a property if the numbers are right.
That's right. So the next part is the subconscious, right? Am I good enough? Can I do this? Can I follow through? That going and working on the A to B actually begins to work on the subconscious mind. So every time we accomplish something, we build confidence. Okay. So every time we take a step, we build confidence. People go, yeah, but what if I go to A, B, C, and D, and then I hit F and I fail, right? Then I'm going to feel terrible. Well, then your goal is then go reflect on what you did at A, B, C, D. Okay. And if you begin to reflect on what you did on A, B, C, D, and figure out what actually happened on F, because people they just look at it as a failure. They don't look at it as like the ability to go and learn what actually happened. So I'll tell people there's lots of deals that I make offers on that I don't get. There's lots of them that I make offers that I don't get. But I will tell you on the offers that I make, I do at this point, my skill set is I'll get about 4 out of every 10 deals, 4 out of every 10 offers that I make. Okay. The other thing is and I think it's a stat that people need to know, that 60% of the deals you're going to get are going to come on resubmittals. So here's what most people do. They make an offer on a house. They don't get it. Somebody else gets under a contract. Somebody else offers list price or over list price. They're like, oh, fuck it. This stuff doesn't work. Somebody else paid too much, too high, and they walk off to the next deal. No. What I always teach people is you put that on your calendar, even if it's under contract. You put that on your calendar. So for November 1st, you re-offer on that house. So every 30 days, you offer on that house. Okay. So if you offer on 30 days, you offer the same price. At 60 days, you offer the same price. At 90 days, you offer the same price. Now, here's the key. If it goes to 120 days, you then drop the price by 5%.
Okay.
And what you'll see is the psychology of the buyer will go, oh, it's kind of like that girlfriend or boyfriend. You got to like, I got to get them out of my house. I got to get them out of my hair. I got to get out of this relationship. I got to get out of this relationship. Like, all of a sudden they lose you. All of a sudden they leave you and you're like, oh, wait, what happened? Right?
You took it away from them.
They'll take it away from them. But it needs to be every 30 days. And so somewhere on, so when I go and I get my 4 out of 10 deals, it's a lot of times it's 60% of those is somewhere along that resubmittal process. Okay.
The money's in the follow-up, right?
What's that?
I said the money's in the follow-up.
The money's in the follow-up massively. Because I've missed out on deals that I didn't follow up on. So now I have software that tracks it, right? So I have software that I go out there and I track it. And that allows me to go out there and I resubmit automatically every 30 days. But that's where I think a lot of people miss it. Okay. The other thing is just make an offer. I know it sounds super simple, but just make an offer, because just submitting an offer is kind of like just going to the gym that first time, right? Going to the gym first time doesn't make you fit. It doesn't make you strong. It doesn't make you sexy. But in your mind, all that just happened.
That's right.
So just make the offer the first time, and it's okay if it doesn't get accepted.
And that's a small win too, and I think just like what you were talking about before is when people look at the entire process, it's kind of like, okay, I want to make $1 million a year. Well, I start trying to make $1 million a year and realize, okay, well, I'm not getting there quick enough. I'm never going to be able to do it. And I just give up. But if you break it down into $3,000 a day, well, now that seems more obtainable, right?
Yeah.
Now I can focus on $3,000 a day. It's the same way with flipping houses. And that A, B, C, and D that you named and E, and then you failed on F, well, that was still 5 wins leading up to F. And I think it's important to remind yourself to affirm yourself, hey, look, that those were wins. Yeah, I failed on this one. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and figure out what the problem is so that it doesn't happen again. But I still had these wins, and I'm totally with you. Man, I'm big on mindset. I do a ton of reading and really focus on getting my mind right, because I know that if you have your mind right, man, you can do anything. You can conquer the world. For sure. That gives you that confidence of knowing and speaking into existence that it's going to happen. It's not even an option. I'm just going to practice and focus on the daily goals, the matters at hand, until what I know is coming comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is you have to begin to work on yourself on some level, right? So you have to do something to work on yourself to build self-confidence. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, so if you start a workout program, just eat a little bit healthier, learn a different language, something outside of business to work on yourself. So if you kind of have a 2-pronged attack of I'm working on my business, but I'm working on myself in another area, now you start developing your own self-improvement program, right? You're like, oh, my life's beginning to improve. And that begins to build the confidence to follow through. Okay. Obviously having like an environment. So like all my students, we have something called a wolf pack. Okay. And so we actually have the largest real estate like invest. So we have all these like RIAs and stuff, right? So I have students in 130 markets across the country, like thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of them, right? So we have like the largest real estate investment network in the country. We're just very quiet about like how we do it, you know, because I don't know, we have like Wolfpack meetups and whatnot, right? It's very cool, and people are pretty crazy about the Wolfpack because we have these wild ass bus tours that we do that are just like make Mardi Gras look very tame.
Nice.
They're really wild. They're a ton of fun, and we teach like how we do real estate. Is very taught very methodically. It's very step-by-step approach, right? But that environment of the Wolfpack makes people go, this is going to stick, right? And it keeps them motivated. And we have to have that. And they don't have to be with my Wolfpack, right? But they need to be with an environment that's going to stick, right? So if let's say they're on a Facebook group and they have somebody who's just a jerk, just can't be positive, man, they need to like get away from that person.
Okay? Delete them.
You've got to delete that person, because what we put in our mind is so damn important. We watch what we put in our mouth, but we don't watch what we put in our minds. And I'm sure people have heard that said over and over again, but it's critical. To watch what we put in our minds is key to our success. So, and I will tell you this, house flipping, if people just, I mean, I'm happy to share any kind of house flipping tips or strategies they want here, you know, to do. I'll just tell them about a fun little deal if you want me to real quick that I'm going to go do.
Sure, absolutely.
I bought a house, I call it a house that I made $35,000 an hour, right? So $70,000 in like 2 hours. So I bought a house from a lady who's actually a 911 operator, military operator. She got herself in a bad position. She tried to sell her house. She couldn't, need some fix ups, some upgrades. So I took her house over. I put it into my IRA, which means, those of you guys who aren't sure about that, it means I don't have to pay taxes on the profits. Depending on my IRA setup, I don't have to pay them until like 59, or if I have a Roth, I don't ever have to pay taxes on it. And so I bought this house, and she was only $2,500 behind on property taxes. That was it. So I kept the loan in her name. I put the IRA in my name. I put the property in my IRA. I paid her $2,500 in taxes. And then I let her rent it from me. So what happened is she was upside down on her payment by $200. The average house during the Great Recession got foreclosed on over $300 a month. The average homeowner was only $300 upside down during the Great Recession. So she was renting, or she was paying $950 on the house, but she could only afford $750. I said, ma'am, how much would you like to rent the house from me until we get your credit straight? I'll buy it from you. I'm just going to take your loan, put it in my IRA, right? So those are people who know about the subject too.
Mm-hmm. And I wish Dan was with us still, because that's where his primary focus is. He really a lot of subject too.
Subject too, they're great. They're wonderful. They're wonderful, right? They're great.
Definitely.
I love to talk to them about it. They're great. And she was $2,500 behind in taxes. When I paid her $2,500 off, guess what happened to her house payment? It dropped from $950 to $750. She's renting from me for $750 a month. Okay, now her payoff $54,000. She wants to move out. Now I'll go flip it and sell it for $130. And it needs a little bit of fix, about $78,000 to fix up. This is $60,000, $70,000 of profit on that deal. The deal took me 2 hours to put together. That was it.
Man, that's cool. 2
hours. So having a large toolbox with the skill sets to go do this stuff. Okay. Now I don't do a lot of those like that anymore, because I like to buy stuff in volume, in mass volume. But I think that those are really fun, because you get to help somebody out of a bad situation. Somebody might go, well, why did you just give her a house? Listen, when I was in foreclosure, I lost my house to foreclosure before I got started in real estate. Mm-hmm. If somebody would have told me exactly what to have done, I couldn't see like 6 inches in front of me. Because when you're in the middle of the shit, you can't see past anything.
Sure. We
helped her rebuild her credit. Now she can go buy another house. She doesn't want this house. She can buy another house, and we'll go make a lot of money on the deal. You know, so and it took us 2 hours to put the deal together, the sign. So those individuals who are listening out there, if you have a good skill set, if you have a good toolbox for this stuff, if you're around people who've done this stuff, the real people who've done this, okay? Because you're gonna be a lot of people who are fluffers. You're gonna be a lot of fluffers who say they know this stuff, they've done this stuff. So you may have known this, but like there are some seminar companies that went out of business last year, right? So seminar companies, right? So I've had a seminar business now since 2008, for the longest standing real estate seminar business, right? And there's been a lot of what we call copycats along the way. 2 of them went down out of business last year because they got shut down by the FTC. So one of their speakers wanted to come and speak for me. I said, well, great. Tell me how you teach about flipping a house. So he walked me through 30 minutes of it. And we're on a Zoom call, walked me through 30 minutes of it. I said, that's not even fucking possible. Not even like not possible because what you're doing is complex. I said, what you're doing is A, it's not legal. 2, it's not even real house flipping. And 3, like, it's not ever going to happen in the next 30 years because of what you're doing. I go, have you ever flipped a house? He goes, no, but we were just taught to teach this.
What? And he was going to turn around and tell your audience that same shit.
That's right. He said, you're a really nice guy, but I'm not going to have you. Plus, it's probably a bad sign if you work for a company that got shut down.
No doubt.
Right. So people have to be careful about who they listen to about this house flipping stuff, right? Because there's a lot of people who will talk about it, but very few who actually know how to like walk the talk and actually how to do it, right?
You're right. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, my groups, you know, I told you we've got about 300,000 folks cumulative across about 60 or so different groups. A couple of them are really big, you know, 80, 100,000 folks. But, you know, everybody says that they're a real estate investor until you ask them how many houses that they've done. And then you get that answer of zero. Okay. So can you really call yourself a real estate investor? Can you really call yourself a wholesaler? Can you really call yourself a real estate agent if you've never sold or done any of that? You know, at least 1 or 2. I'm not asking you if you're an expert. I'm asking you, have you done it?
Yeah.
You know, I can't.
Absolutely.
It's way different. Let me ask you this. You know, obviously 2020 has been an interesting year, right? You know, there's a lot kind of going on in the world and so forth. And from my standpoint and you know, and the people that I'm talking to and so forth, that this is going to be, fortunately and unfortunately for a lot of folks, you know, a really good time this last quarter, you know, for the people that are flipping houses, that are doing all of that because, you know, forbearances are coming up and all of that. Do you feel like that this could be potentially a gold rush, you know, like a major opportunity? Is it the opportunity to get in, or is it just kind of, you know, it's business as usual and so forth? What's your take on that?
I think it's going to be, I think over the next 12 months, there's going to be a massive opportunity after the election. After the election happens, the opportunity is going to be massive. I think the only thing that will prevent it from being massive, I think they're going to prime the pump. Meaning, I think the Fed's going to prime the pump. They're going to put a lot of money into the economy. They're going to try to prevent these foreclosures from having the whole government like shut down, meaning all these, not a normal government shutdown like you see in politics, but prevent some of these foreclosures from happening. Okay. But I think the backup is too much. The shadow inventory is too thick that they're not going to be able to save them all. I think that people have lost their work muscle. I think there's too many people who are enjoying the unemployment. And so when they pull the unemployment, their work muscle is going to be very, very weak. So they're going to have a hell of a time getting back to work. I think there's too many people who defer their payments, and those payments are going to come due. And so I think the house flippers, the real estate investors who are prepared, are going to have a windfall. I made a lot of money in 2008. I was buying houses in Southern California, okay, that used to go for 450 grand. I was buying for 105 grand, okay? I bought houses in 2012 in Summerlin, Nevada, which is a subdivision of Vegas, for 85 grand. Those houses are worth 360. Okay, and we bought hundreds of those. We like did this with our wolf pack. In fact, in 9 months, we flipped $43.8 million worth of deals in 9 months. Okay, we did 400 houses in Orlando. When Orlando was at a time, houses were 100 grand. They're now worth 250, or like about 250 grand. We did about 400 houses there in about a 2.5 year time period. So the opportunity, and by the way, each of those had their own different little recessionary markets, right? So I did Vegas in 2012 was a ghost town. It was us and Zappos, right? Zappos, nobody else was there at that time. Yep. So I think that what will happen is that the time for experienced real estate investors and new individuals who get themselves properly trained, teams properly set up, heads screwed on straight, right mindset, there's going to be a massive shift in wealth that they can go and partake in. Okay, I know that we're gearing up, we're amped up about this. we're prepared to buy into the tunes of thousands of deals. Okay,
Wow.
the tunes of thousands of deals. So we're prepared for this, and I think that this is going to be a time that there's going to be a pretty major shift in wealth in the real estate market.
I agree, man. I couldn't agree more. I'm excited about it too. Well, I'll tell you what, Armando, I want to say thanks for coming on the show today and spending some time with us, man. I'm sorry, Dan bolted on us here. You know, I'm just kidding, but man, we really enjoyed it. I enjoyed chatting it up with you, man. I know that I learned a lot. I know that our audience learned a lot. Where can our audience go to find out more about you and connect with you and your programs and so forth?
So here's what I thought I would do is, I think people always want those two conscious things: how to find deals, how to get money, how to find deals, how to get. So I thought I have a best-selling book. So I thought, let me just give people some chapters, the most important chapters for free. Okay.
Okay. That'd be
How
awesome.
to find deals. So if they go to startflipping.com, then I have some free chapters for them for the book. They can just download them immediately. Okay.
Sweet.
So startflipping.com. They just go to startflipping.com. It's super simple. They all have to do is put it in their first name and their email, and they'll get them, and they can start reading them right away. So
Man, that's awesome.
startflipping.com. We believe in making things super simple. So you put in your name, your email, boom, and you start reading the chapters. And I think those chapters will really resonate on how to get the money. And I'll just tell the individuals who are looking for the money. It comes down to knowing the right words, knowing what the lenders are looking for, which is way easier than banks. Okay. When it comes to finding deals, there's like 5 key spots of finding your first deal that you can go to. You don't have to go to 100 different spots. 5 key spots of finding your first deal. And by the way, it's not usually the realtors, just so you know.
Right.
Okay. I love realtors. I've trained thousands of them. Okay. I've trained thousands. I bought a brokerage. I'm not a realtor, but I bought a brokerage recently. So because I believe, I was like, well, why am I going to go be a realtor for 10 years? Let me just go buy a brokerage. So I bought a brokerage. But I love realtors. I've trained thousands of them. But I think the thing is that people need to get there faster. So I gave them 5 ways in the book that they don't have to use a realtor. If they're not having success with a realtor, realtors are great, but 5 other ways to do it as well. So they need to be doing some with realtors and some without realtors. I love realtors, but they need to how to get off-market deals as well. Okay.
No doubt.
Cool.
For sure.
So they can go to startflipping.com, and that's there. That's for your guests. I haven't, by the way, I haven't set this up for anybody else. So this is for your guests.
That.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I appreciate
Y'all hear that? You better take advantage of it.
I appreciate you guys having me on, Trevor.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on today, man. It's been a lot of fun, and man, I can't wait to check into what you do next. And I'll be hollering at you about that. You said that party's at the end of the month, huh?
The month is going to be. We're going to be breaking every rule.
Awesome.
The last 6 months.
Awesome.
It'll be good.
Sounds like fun, man. Well, you take care, man. I wish you well, and we'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye.